grandfather who had served her as Blackdog before him. When Attalissa died herself, Attokas had wept as though she were his grandmother. But 9 months later, a newborn baby had stared up at him, cradled in his arms, and he had seen Attalissa recognize him, ancient familiarity in the infant's startled eyes. Attalissa lived and died, and was reborn in a girl-child conceived the day of her death. Some goddesses shaped themselves a physical body only when they so desired, remaining for the most part a spirit within the waters, or appearing as a mist or a dance of light. But Attalissa returned, mortal life after mortal life, in a human body. Thus, it was said, she never grew remote from the concerns and the suffering and the joys of her folk. That was part of the fervent love the people of Lissavakail professed for her. There were only a handful of the goddess's folk gathered at the western end of the red lacquered bridge that arched from the temple islet across the channel to the island town. A pair of old women, eyes fixed devoutly on what to them must be only a cluster of blue figures and a tiny, occasionally bobbing gold crown. A young couple, their minds quite evidently on something other than devotions. A family in their best clothes, indigo and red. The wife wearing her bride gift circlet of gold coins across a weather-worn brow. They were not from town. By the cut of their clothes, peasants from one of the high villages. The children were paying more attention to the young couple than to the remote figures atop the tower. They used to pray on the town's end of the bridge. The Blackdog remembered, meeting the townsfolk there. The folk had come to sing hymns for Attalissa, and she had held their babies and blessed them, kissed the foreheads of the brides and the grooms, exchanged stories of the old days with the old folk whom she had kissed as babies. What Attokas was, no tradition of the temple preserved, if it had ever been known. Old, as old as the goddess, or older, perhaps. God, demon, spirit of the wilds. Even the Blackdog no longer remembered what it had been, before it became Atalissa's guardian, bound, like her, to human life. The litany tottered to its end. The women bowed to the goddess, who bowed in return, carefully, to keep the tall headdress from falling. And then she cried out suddenly and dropped to her knees. At the same moment, Attokas heard, smelt, felt a crack like a thunderclap all about them. Hot metal, a shock like an avalanche, mowing trees before it. He had his arm around the girl the next moment, kneeling by her, sword drawn, though there was no one to defend her against that he could see. The armed priestesses had moved as he did, barring the stairs, the only obvious entry for threat. "The road," old lady said. "Sweet Attalissa, save us! Look at the road!" Attokas passed Attalissa to the arms of Cayug, who was spear lady, captain of the warriors, and joined old lady at the parapet. A black shifting swarm covered the road on the southern shore of the lake, approaching the bridge to the town. "Sound the bells!" he shouted back to the armed pair by the stairs. "Raiders!" The dog snarled in his soul, roused by the threat and dangerous. Nothing the Blackdog could do here to defend the goddess. Old lady's hands shook as she gripped his arm. "They weren't there," she said, and her voice shook as well. "Attokas, they weren't there, even a few moments ago." "Wizardry," whispered the plump mistress of novices. "Or divinity." She looked at him, making it a question. "Wizardry," Attokas confirmed. "I smell it. And something else. But not a god, not a goddess." A scent to the spirit like old ashes on stone and the hot tang of metal and fire. Not familiar, and yet, no, that strange hot smell of ash and metal was nothing the Blackdog could ever have smelt before. But it raised the dog's hackles, roared of danger and death, and the need to defend, defending Attokas to all else for a moment. It was not the time or the place. He forced the Blackdog quiet, calming it, calming himself. Whatever the threat was, it could not be mere wizardry. No lone wizard, no group of wizards he had ever heard of except in the oldest tales, could hide an army, certainly not so close to a deity's holy place. If they had been hidden and not dropped from some other location, he had felt the air shatter. He called them raiders. That was what the mind expected.